So now we'll go ahead and get started with our formal PowerPoint section of our presentation. Just a note of housekeeping, if you do have any questions, it's really helpful for us if you put them in the Q&A box that you'll see at the bottom of your screen, and we'll come back to those at the end. You'll also see the question, the Q&A box function has an upvoting function. So if you see a question that you also would like to ask, you can go ahead and hit the thumbs up, and then we'll know that it is a question that a lot of you are interested in. So we'll speak for about 30 minutes about the Sutton Trust US program, generally what it is, what we do, and the application process, and we'll finish out with some tips and tricks to help you with your application. And we'll, of course, leave time at the end for any questions that you might have. So let me go ahead and get started here with just an overview of what is the Sutton Trust. So the Sutton Trust US program was founded and funded by the Sutton Trust. The applications that we are currently holding are going to be for our 10th cohort. So we've been around for quite a few years now, and we're very proud of the accomplishments of all of our students. So you can see we've helped more than 400 Sutton Trust students get admitted to US universities. They attend more than 70 different institutions across the United States. So the Sutton Trust funded and founded the program, but us at the US-UK Fulbright Commission are the ones who administer and run the program. So I am a program manager for the Sutton Trust US program, but I also work at the US-UK Fulbright Commission, whose mission is to increase international exchange between the US and the UK. So we have a lot of expertise in that area, and the Sutton Trust, as the UK's leading social mobility charity, really helps us reach out to students who perhaps wouldn't otherwise have the opportunity to study in the United States. And we think that being able to apply to US universities and enroll in US universities is an opportunity that should be open to anyone, regardless of their income levels. So Krissah touched on a lot of these in her overview of what it's like studying in the US, but I'll also share with you a few really broad reasons about why a lot of our students are interested in studying in the US in the first place. So studying in the US might not be for everyone, and you certainly do not have to know if it's for you before you apply on the program. It is a good fit for a lot of students, and there are a few reasons why. So first, many students are impressed by the quality and reputations of US universities. Of course, university rankings should be taken with a big grain of salt, but US universities always rank very well. And moreover, there are many, many, many US universities out there, and you'll definitely find one that fits your academic interests or your personality or your extracurricular interests as well. Second, one of the big highlights that Krissah mentioned was that the US university degree is extremely flexible. And many US universities, not all of them, but most of them, follow what is called a liberal arts curriculum, which means that you are studying multiple things as part of your degree. So, for example, if you decide, I predominantly want to study English, you can major in English, but you'll be expected to take courses outside of English as well. So you might take some maths courses, a psychology class, an art class, and some of the cool extracurriculars that Krissah mentioned as well. So you have a wide variety of classes you can choose from, and you can even double major or have two main areas of study. So for example, maybe you're really interested in international business and theater. So you could go out to school that allows you to major or pursue 2 degrees, one in international business and one in theater. So you can definitely have a really broad range of experiences at a US university. And of course, there is also going to be the availability of funding, which naturally is of a concern of a lot of our applicants. So undergraduate scholarships are going to be offered to students based on merit, extracurricular achievement, financial need, and other personal characteristics. And if you look hard enough, you can select your universities carefully and have a better chance of receiving funding for your studies, which the Sutton Trust US program will also provide assistance with. And next, of course, you would be studying in a different country, in a different culture. The US is huge and has a great amount of diversity in geography and culture, and the different types of experiences that you can have. So students often will also take road trips or explore other parts of the United States as well. And lastly, it is a great opportunity to expand and internationalize and strengthen your CV. So studying abroad and working abroad makes you a lot more employable, and students are going to be more competitive in a global workplace. And of course, you can gain lots of transferable skills. You can study in the US and then bring those skills back to the UK and be an attractive, employable candidate. Okay, so that was a few reasons why people might be interested in studying in the US in the first place, but how does the Sutton Trust US program actually help you get there? So the Sutton Trust US program is designed to help Year 12 students in England and Wales, S5 students in Scotland, or Year 13 students in Northern Ireland from state schools explore US study. So we do this by having 2 virtual residentials to explore US study and receive comprehensive admissions advice. We'll offer in-depth admissions test preparation. We'll also offer a week in the US staying on campus at a leading US university, where you'll be able to visit a wide variety of US universities and just learn a bit more about whether this is actually a good fit for you and whether you actually do want to go on and apply to US universities. Of course, because of COVID-19, at the moment, we are working towards visiting the US in person next summer. But that may not be possible, and we may need to reformat US Weeks as a virtual event. We did run US Weeks virtually this year, so we have quite a bit of experience making that content engaging and interactive and making sure that you're still making those connections with US universities as best as possible. And if you're accepted onto the program, we will give you more information about what US Weeks will look like next summer. Along with guidance to you, we will also support your schools and all of the documents that they need to create for the process. And we will support your families as well, because understandably, your household might have a lot of concerns about how to make this financially feasible, and we're here to help answer those questions. And of course, all of the costs are covered by the program. So any events that we have in person, we will cover your accommodation, we will cover your travel, we will cover your food, and for any other benefits as well, we will cover the cost of preparing for the admissions exam and so on and so forth. So all costs are covered by the program. And to dig a bit more in depth about what these events actually entail, so the first event that we will have, if you're accepted into the program, is the April Residential, which provides students with sort of a crash course on the US admissions process. So this includes how to apply for financial aid. This includes admissions testing and what university campus life is like. It's also a great opportunity for you to get to know everyone else in your cohort. Because as Krissah mentioned, a big part of the Sutton Trust US program is also forming this community that's going to support each other throughout this US university process. And it's also an opportunity for you to get to know us as well. Once the April Residential is complete, you will work towards taking the ACT admissions exam, which will be in June. So you will sit the ACT exam in June at a testing center close to your home. There's many throughout the UK, so you'll just sit it wherever is closest to you. Once you sit the ACT exam, the next event we will have is going to be the virtual June residential. So during this residential, we'll really dig in depth. Okay, now you've taken the ACT exam. Now what does the rest of the US university application look like? What components do you need? What like essays do you need to write, and so on and so forth. So we'll cover everything from financial aid and how to choose a university admissions school, how to prepare for interviews, how to write those essays. So you'll leave the June residential with a good start on your university application. Our fourth event is, of course, the US Weeks, in which you'll get a taste of campus life. You'll learn a lot more about US culture, about higher education. You'll visit many, many different universities, and you'll have the chance to speak with current students, Sutton Trust US Programme alumni at these universities, admissions staff from all over the US. So it's a very busy week, but it is definitely a lot of fun. And lastly, If you do choose that to go on to US universities, and if you do choose to go on and apply, we will offer you full support with that process. So as I mentioned earlier, you don't need to know right now if you do want to go on and enroll in a US university or even make that application. But after US weeks, you'll have a much better idea of whether this is something you want to move forward with. And every year we have many students who do decide to go on and apply to US universities. So we will provide full support in that process from, it would be November 2021 to January 2022 is when you would be working on those applications. So if you do decide to go on and apply, we are definitely there in support of you. So that's a really brief overview. All of this information is also on our website if you want to review it on the website as well. And now I will hand it over to my colleague, Nancy, who will walk you through some of the eligibility requirements of the program.
Hi everybody. So I'll firstly just say thank you so much for joining us, as Madison said, and thank you to Madison for giving us that overview of the programme and covering some of the reasons why you might be interested in studying in the US, and also to Krissah for sharing her experiences of the programme. So my name is Nancy and I am a programme assistant for the Sutton Trust US Programme, and I'm really happy to be here today to share a bit more information about the programme with you, and specifically some more of the eligibility criteria that we'll go on to now, and hopefully this will be of interest to a lot of you. So we're really delighted to have you here with us. And hopefully in this next section we can learn a little bit more about the kinds of students that we might be looking for. So as you'll see on the screen, the starred qualities here are what we're going to be looking for in our eligibility criteria. And this is really important because this is to be eligible for the programme. These are the things that we're going to be looking at to see if you cover. And so I'll go through the first point, which is that you must currently be in Year 12 in England and Wales, or S5 in Scotland, or Year 13 in Northern Ireland. And you must attend and have always attended a state-funded school or college, so you don't pay fees for your education. You must not hold US citizenship. And you must also be from a low-income family. So this generally means that you'll be from a family where the household income is £45,000 a year or less. And then the final point, which I'm sure is why so many of you are here today, is that you'll be interested in US culture and higher education. And on the next slide, we'll talk a bit more about some additional criteria, but these are the really important ones that we'll ask you to tick if you're hoping to be considered for the programme. And so these are the points that we'd ask you to meet. And I will move on now to the next slide, please. So the next slide is all about additional criteria. So in addition to the points that I've mentioned before, these are things that you don't have to meet to be on the programme. However, we're really interested in students who meet these extra pieces of criteria, and the more you meet, the stronger this will help your application to be. So we'll go through a few of these now. So we are looking for students who may be the first in their family to attend university, so first generation students. We're looking at students who may have been eligible for free school meals, so that's another piece of criteria that we're interested in. We're looking at students who attend a school or college with a below average A-level or higher point score, low rate progression into higher education. And also for students who attend schools with a lower than average progression into higher education, or a higher than average proportion of students who qualify for free school meals. And so the next point is students who perhaps live in a neighbourhood with a low rate of progression into higher education, or in areas with a high level of socio-economic deprivation. So again, these are just some points that we're really interested in considering when we're reading your applications as a team. And the final piece of criteria that we're really interested in is, do you have excellent GCSE or S4 results? So this is another thing that we'll be reviewing when we look at your application. And as it says at the bottom there, and as I've covered, the more of these you meet, the more likely you are to get a place on the programme. So hopefully this is really useful for all of you to know when you're considering applying for the programme and what to include in your applications. And if I can ask to move on to the next slide, please. So students can access the application through the Sutton Trust US Programme website, and we'll share that in the chat for you in a moment. It's also on the screen just there, and I'm sure many of you are familiar with it if you already have this interest in our programme that's brought you here today. And so what you'll do is create a login and then be taken through a short eligibility check. I'm just covering some of the points that I've already outlined in the previous slides. And then once that you've confirmed you meet the criteria that we've covered, you'll be taken to the application form. And so some of you may have already looked over this, and some of you may be right at the beginning of the process, and some of you may just be learning about this. So the form is something that you can save and return to, so long as it's completed and submitted in full by Sunday the 17th of January. Although what I will say and stress here, which is really important, is that we hope you get this to us sooner than this, just to make sure your form's all prepared and ready to go. So that's something that we'd really encourage, to get your forms into us as soon as possible. And we also say that if you successfully complete an application, you must complete each section and submit this online. And one of the things that we ask for is a school reference form, which must be completed and submitted online no later than Thursday the 21st of January. And we ask for this for you to be considered for the programme. And so just to tell you a little bit more about the application process, as you can see on the screen, it includes an online application form and an online school reference, as I've covered. And both of these are based on the US Common Application System. So our way of selecting students really mirrors the US process and the kinds of ways that US universities will look over applications when you're applying to their institutions. So it's a really great preparation for if you are considering to study in the US, and it gets you to think about lots of things and how to share them about yourself. So it's a really great first step within this process. And as is said there, both forms will be completed and submitted online. And you can see the lovely Safa on the screen just there, and hopefully you've had a chance to read her quote. And we'll pop over now to the next slide, please. So some of you, again, may already be familiar with this, but just to cover, the application is going to ask questions about your academic achievement, your extracurricular activities, so anything you're involved with outside of academia, your family and your financial situation, and your interest in US study. So there are also several short questions, these are essay questions, and a short video interview, which we really don't want you to be daunted by, and I'll cover some of that in just a moment. So if you have any questions before or during starting the application, then we ask you to look at the information provided on our website. And also we have a really useful FAQs page, so you can go and look there, and this will hopefully answer any questions you might have about the programme. And it will answer some of your questions about inquiries about applications. And so the application form may seem quite lengthy, and this is just because our staff ask these questions because we're really interested in getting to know you, and we want a really holistic view of you as a student. So we want to learn more about your interest in the US and more about the likelihood of your success in the US admissions process. So although it may seem long, all of the sections are incredibly important, and so that's why they're there, each one for their own specific reason. And so our team reviews each application with a lot of care, and we aim to get to know the student in process as well as we can. And so lastly, as I said earlier, the video interview is a really key part of the application, and it helps to give us as reviewers a good sense of who you are as a person. So of course, there's so much we can learn from you on paper from reading your application, but sometimes to really get a sense of someone's personality and what they're all about, it's really great just to see them on video. And this doesn't have to be, you know, a cinematic blockbuster shoot. It can just be your phone propped up on some books and just you talking to the camera and just telling us a little bit more about yourself. And it's so useful for us to see. I can't stress that enough. So nothing fancy at all, but just talking to the phone as though you'd be talking to us as staff, just so we can get to know you a little bit more. And it's a really, really important part of the application. And I'll now ask for us to just move on to the next slide. So finally, there is the school reference form, and this is due on the 21st of January. And so for this, what you'll be doing is entering the details of a teacher into and inviting them to become your referee to submit a reference on behalf of you to support your application. So before completing this section, you should speak to your chosen referee to make sure they're able to complete a reference for you. And this representative, this is another important point, must be from your current school, as we ask questions on current school context and we ask about your grade predictions. So we ask you to reach out to a teacher in your current school just to make sure that we can have that conversation with them. We hope that this is a referee who'd know you well and be willing to give a fair and really honest assessment of you and your character. And so it can't come from a family member or a close friend. We ask that it comes from a teacher at your school. And after you've filled out the relevant section, the teacher will receive an automatic email with a link to complete this online reference. And the reference is kept confidential, so it's not submitted through you as a student. However, you will receive confirmation once the reference has been submitted. So if you have any other questions about who to choose as a referee or what to do if you want to change your referee, then you can see the webpage again, and there's some information on this on the FAQ section. And as you can see just on the slide here, there's a bit more information on the reference. And so just to stress again, this is to support your application. So it's just so we have an additional piece of information about you, so we can really see you as a whole student and learn a little bit more about you. And I'm now going to hand you over to my colleague Angel, and I look forward to taking some of your questions at the end of this presentation.
Thanks so much, Nancy. So hi everyone, I'm Angel Fletcher and I'm a Programme Assistant on the Sutton Trust US Programme. If you do end up applying to the programme, along with Madison and Nancy, I'll be another one of the team members reading your application this year. And we all really can't wait to read them. It is literally, I'm not joking, one of our favourite times of year. Now that you've heard a bit more about the programme and about deadlines and how the application forms work, we think it's going to be really useful to show you some tips that will help you with approaching your application. So the first one, and I can't stress enough how important this is context. It's really important that you let us know about any extenuating circumstances, including family and financial information. At the bottom of the family information section, there is a box where you can give us information that you were unable to fit into the application. The more context you can give, the better, as we are really looking at the whole of your application in a holistic way, which helps us to build a picture of you and really get a sense of who you are. Another really important tip is to draft your essays in Word. I know that might sound obvious, but when you have an application form, it's really tempting to just, write your answer immediately into the application form. The reason why we advise against that is because drafting your essays in Word will give you access to an accurate word count and spell check, and it's always worth double checking for grammar and spelling before submitting. So we really advise to draft any comments that you'll write in text boxes in Word to make sure that you can really feel comfortable that you've proofread and made sure that everything is exactly how you want it before you submit. Another one that's really important that Nancy and Madison touched on earlier, which I really can't stress enough, is the importance of submitting the video interview. The video interview is a required part of the application, and it helps tie together your whole application and gives the reviewers a good idea of who you are as a person. Your video does not need to be fancy or nicely edited. What matters the most are your responses to the question. So be sure to read the video instructions and answer each question fully. Remember then to upload your video to YouTube as unlisted. This is because unlisted videos are only accessible to people who have the link, which will just be you and the reviewers. So please don't worry about the video interview. It's just a chance for us to informally get a bit more of a sense of you. And really, if you think about it, rather than thinking of it as a daunting thing, think of it as something fun that you can really get creative with, because we love to see it and it really is a unique part of the process. Another really important part of the application is think about avoiding cliches. We receive so many applications, so avoiding cliches will help your application stand out. We really want to hear about your unique experiences. So the more you can, put that cliche aside and just really show us who you are, that's all the better. And finally, and this kind of touches on my last point, be yourself. We want to get to know the real you, so please don't try to be someone you're not. We're looking to accept candidates with a wide range of interests, personalities, and experiences. We adopt the US policy of holistic admissions when reviewing applications, and this means that we'll take into account all aspects of your application: academics, extracurriculars, your personal voice, as shown in your essays and videos. don't be afraid to show off. You may feel like you're bragging, and I know it can feel like I just want to be humble, but no, you're not. Literally, don't be afraid to showcase your achievements, because it's really important. It's so important when discussing your activities, community involvement, your goals, and everything like that. It's not bragging at all. If anything, it's just selling the amazing people that you are to us. Since you reviewed the applications holistically, adopt this mindset about being yourself when filling out your application. Tell us about all aspects of your life, whether you play badminton, have a part-time job, are involved in an organisation, or spend time looking after your siblings. We want to know. And as Nancy mentioned earlier, this is because it does echo the US Common Application. So the more you can tell us about yourself, the better. Next slide, please. So some really important application tips that are really also important to bear in mind are, and these are quite practical, but I think it's really important, are saving at the end of each section. So one of the things about the application that's quite unique and hopefully makes the process easier for you is that you can save at the end of each section and return to the application. There's no need to rush and submit your application. You have almost 2 months until the application is due, so please take your time and don't rush your answers. Take time to reflect and be thoughtful. And you know, whilst we do want you to get your applications in early, it's okay to take your time and to reflect and to think about exactly how you'd like to answer the questions, especially as it is quite a lengthy application. Another really important, perhaps obvious tip, but it's worth stressing, is submit before the deadline. Don't leave submission until the last minute. There are just way too many factors that can go wrong. And this is something not just for this program, but in life that's really worth considering. You might have the website being slow from other people submitting. Your internet connection might have issues, and believe me, we've all had them. The computer battery might die. There's just so many factors that could go wrong if you leave it till the final hour or even the final day. For your peace of mind, please just consider submitting a good while before the deadline to ensure that you do actually end up getting to submit your application. Another really important application tip is ask a staff member for a reference well in advance. So I know Nancy talked about the school reference, and as it's due several days after the student application, we recommend approaching a staff member at your school as early as possible. The reference does take some time to complete, and you want to be respectful of your reference's time and also make sure that you do have a reference at the end of the application process, because as we said earlier, if we don't receive a reference, then we can't proceed the application any further. So it really is very important that you make sure that you ask a staff member well ahead of time for your reference. Another really important aspect and tip that I think is really important is saving a copy of the application. So once you submit the application, you will no longer have access. We strongly recommend saving a copy of your essays and your family/financial information. If you're not accepted onto the program and decide to continue on to apply to US universities, you'll find this information really helpful in the application process. As we said before, it echoes the Common App. So these things that, you know, the preparation you're doing now, whether you end up being in the program or not, will really help you in the long run. So do make sure to save a copy. We also want to stress here as well, as an extra side note, that we will not be providing you with information you submitted in your application. So after the application is submitted and in our hands, we won't be able to provide, you know, your answers or anything like that. So just be aware that, you know, if you don't save that copy of your application, you won't be able to access those answers again. So it really is important that you make sure you do that. And finally, and I know this seems obvious again, but it is really important, make sure to check over your application before hitting submit. When you hit submit, you'll no longer be able to edit the application. So it really is important that you double check each section to ensure you're submitting the strongest application you can. This means checking for spelling, grammar, etc. A proofread really does go a long way, and checking it, double checking it and rechecking it is always a good way to go. Can I have the next slide, please, Madison? So obviously we're talking about the Sutton Trust US Programme today, and as amazing an opportunity as the Sutton Trust US Programme is, there are other ways to learn about US study and lots of brilliant resources out there for you to tap into if you're looking to explore higher education in America. So we want to flag these to you while we talk about the Sutton Trust US Programme. So the Sutton Trust US Programme is delivered by us at the Fulbright Commission, who are the UK's official source of advice for students looking to study in the US. Alongside the Sutton Trust US Programme, staff at Fulbright help thousands of students and teachers each year with applications to the US. So If you're not eligible for the programme or not able to get a place on the programme, there are still more ways you can find out about studying in the US. On our website, fulbright.org.uk, and somebody will pop a link in the chat for you, there are extensive guides about choosing US universities to apply to, how to apply, and how to fund US education. I saw earlier a few questions in the chat about financial aid, and I'm sure that'll come up in the Q&A as well, but fulbright.org.uk is a really good place to find out more about the processes that happen when you want to explore studying in the US. As well as this, Fulbright holds regular seminars for students and parents to attend, which provide an in-depth look at US admissions. Fulbright also organises USA College Day each year, when thousands of people from around the UK come to London to meet with US universities at the largest US university fair in Europe. Just to flag here, we had our USA College Day virtually this year, and there were so many attendees, so it really is a fantastic day. So, if that's something that interests you, please do keep an eye out for next year's event, because it really is a fantastic event and brings so many people together. I also want to flag here that Fulbright advisors offer advice via phone and email for students, and parents are always happy to, and therefore we're always happy to help with any questions you might have. So separate from the Sutton Trust US programme, there are Fulbright advisors who are really, really helpful and can help you with any queries that you have about the US, whether you end up getting onto the programme or not. In short, there's a whole range of opportunities and resources for you to tap into, and we'd encourage you to have a look at both the Sutton Trust US programme website and the Fulbright website in great depth while exploring this process to see the opportunities out there for you. And finally, next slide, Madison. Thank you. So, obviously we're talking about the Sutton Trust US programme today, but the Sutton Trust, our partner organisation, also runs several US-based programmes you might be interested in. These two programmes that you can see on screen, the UK Summer Schools and the Apprenticeship Summer School, will open in January 2021, and we encourage you to take a look. You may apply, just so you know, to both the Sutton Trust US programme and another Sutton Trust programme, such as the UK Summer Schools. However, you may only take a place in one Sutton Trust programme. This is to ensure that as many students as possible are benefiting from these opportunities. So that concludes our sections on what the Sutton Trust US programme is. We're now going to open the floor for the next slide for questions, which I'll pass over to Madison to moderate. Thanks, everyone.
Yes, hello, everyone. Thank you so much for listening to our presentation thus far and hopefully learning a lot of useful information about the Sutton Trust US programme. So I'm going to pop off this PowerPoint in just a second so we can take your questions. But just to emphasize that the application is closed on the 17th of January, 2021, and you can find a lot more information, including a lot of answers to questions if we're not able to get to your question today, at our website, us.suttontrust.com. So I will just stop sharing my screen, so then you'll be able to see everyone. Okay, and if I could ask Krissah to turn her mic and video back on as well. Great. Hi, Krissah. So Krissah will also be here to answer a few of your questions from a participant perspective as well. Okay, so let's go ahead and start with Logan's question, since I saw that a lot of people had similar questions of how many people are accepted onto the program each year, how competitive is it to get on. The acceptance rate is going to change slightly every year, but we typically receive over 1,000 applications. And in the 2021 program, we will have 150 spots. So that is 150 spots, and we typically have over 1,000 applications. Let's see. Sorry, there's a lot of questions, so it may take us a moment to gather our thoughts and read through them. I did see we had a lot of questions about the ACT. So Chris, I was wondering if you'd be willing to talk very briefly about what support we provided for the ACT and just overall what that experience was like.
Yeah, so the ACT experience with Sutton Trust, interesting because it's an exam like any other exam, but Sutton Trust does a really good job of helping you prepare for the exam. So they pay for all of the resources for you to take your first exam. If you need to resit it for any reason, you do have to cover the cost, but Sutton Trust does a really good job of giving you the best chance possible to help you so that you don't have to resit it. The ACT is typically just a multiple choice exam with 4 sections, and then a writing section at the end. Yes, I think that's mainly everything.
Great, thank you. And as Krissah said, we provide a lot of resources to help you best prepare for this exam. I also saw that someone was asking whether the ACT is mandatory. Yes, everyone on our program does take the ACT, and that is regardless of whether you will apply to what are called test optional universities. I saw a few questions about that as well. And that is because if you're accepted onto the program, at that point yet you don't know if you're applying to US universities, you don't know where you'll be applying. So by taking that ACT and preparing for it as well as possible, if you do apply to US universities, it just opens up so many more options for you. So yes, it is mandatory for all of our participants to sit the ACT in June. Let's see. Nancy, these may be a good question for you. We got a few questions about how much do GCSE grades affect your chances of being accepted?
Yeah, so GCSE grades, you'll be able to see listed on the website under the eligibility criteria that I noted before, the kinds of grades that we might be looking for. And as we've all mentioned, we're reviewing your application holistically. So there's so many important things we'll consider, and it's not just one thing of if you've got these grades, you're guaranteed entry to the program. However, obviously having strong grades really helps you to get accepted onto the program, especially as this is something that US universities will be considering. If you do decide to apply there, they'll be reviewing your academic track record and the kinds of grades you've obtained both GCSE and also at A level or IB. So we're obviously looking for students with a strong academic past record, and you'll be able to see these listed on our website. But it is important to note this isn't the only thing we'll be including, it's just something that is important within our process.
Great, thank you so much. I'll throw this one out to Angel and Krissah if you want to chip in from a participant perspective as well. We had a few questions of, do I need to know that I want to apply in the US when I apply for the program, or can I change my mind after the US week?
Great question, and one I think that a lot of people want to know the answer to. So we do not require you to know right now whether you want to study in the US. As with this application webinar, you're exploring the opportunity and the potential to see what American higher education could offer you. It's certainly not something that, you start the program and then you have to immediately, you're bound into applying to US university. It's not like that at all. The whole the first part of the program is to explore. So I'd really just encourage you, if you have even the slightest interest in US study or just want to see what it's like, apply, and then you can explore during the program as to whether or not you want to take it further and actually apply to the US. I don't know if you'd like to add anything to that, Krissah.
No, I think you covered it perfectly. The program is essentially just about gaining the resources and the knowledge that you need to make those decisions. Nothing is like, no one's going to force you to apply to a UK or US university. The staff are just here to give you the guidance and information that you need to make those decisions for yourself.
Yes, that's exactly right. And in fact, the first part of our program, part 1, as you'll see on our website, is called Explore. So it's just all about exploring whether or not this is going to be a good option for you. Of course, if you're applying for the program, we know that you're going to be interested in exploring this option, but you definitely don't have to know with absolute certainty whether or not you will be applying to a US university. And I also saw we got a question, what would happen if you applied and then decided to not go to a US university? And that's fine. A lot of our students choose not to go to a US university. A lot of our students are applying to both US and UK universities, as we definitely encourage you to. So if you go through the whole program and after US weeks you say, this isn't the best choice for me, we completely understand. You are not on the program, committed to going to a US university when you apply to the program. It's just all about exploring those options. So a lot of our students do go on to apply to US universities, but others say, this isn't a good fit for me. I'm glad I learned a lot more about this opportunity, but I'm going to focus on UK university applications. So either route is open to you, and we are not going to force you into one route or the other. Okay, let's look at a few more questions. We got a lot of questions about, is this program free? What is covered? What do I need to pay for? So Angel or Nancy, would one of you like to touch on that question? Go ahead, Nancy.
Happy to. So yes, even though it seems very difficult to believe, and Krissah can attest to this program is fully funded in helping you to explore US higher education. And we know that that's a really difficult concept to grasp. So we're putting it out there now that it is a fully funded program. But one thing that's really important to share with you and to make the distinction between is that we're not a scholarship program. So sometimes there's some confusion that what this program does is provide student with the support of financial aid to study in the US. And actually what we do is we're partnered with universities in the US that are really generous with financial aid. So the support comes from them. So our program is funded in helping you to explore and supporting you, as we've covered, with test preparation and application preparation to the US. So that's what's covered, but it isn't a program where we're covering the tuition to aid students into US universities. So that's a really important distinction that I just wanted to make sure everyone's aware of that. I'm not sure if anyone else wants to add anything there.
I think that's really important. And I think just kind of building off Nancy's point, because I've seen in the chat some questions about, you know, if you're a low-income student, will you be provided with financial aid to study in America? And I think it's really important to flag here, as Nancy said, that whilst we don't, we're not a scholarship program, so we don't provide, you know, tuition or living costs for you to study in America. We have deliberately selected universities, and you'll learn more about this if you get accepted into the program, but we deliberately partner with universities that have very generous financial aid offerings, which means that if you did end up wanting to apply to a university, you would have the opportunity to do so and to make a competitive financial aid application, which would enable you to study in America on a grant or on a loan or whatever it might be that they offer. So I think it's just really worth considering that whilst we're separate from that, our expertise is helping you and aiding you in that process. So you wouldn't be alone, and we'd be helping you to try and get the best financial aid offer you possibly can.
Great, thank you. Look at a few more questions here. And just related to that point, I did see a few questions asking what type of financial aid students are receiving from universities. So the majority of our students are going to receive what's called need-based financial aid from US universities, which are grants that you don't need to pay back, sort of based on your household's financial situation. Other students choose to pursue merit scholarships, which are going to be based on, you know, pre-existing academic criteria or perhaps some leadership criteria. But yes, the funding that you are receiving to go to the US comes from the US universities that you are applying to. And all of the costs for participating in the program are covered by the program. So food, accommodation, travel, all of that good stuff. I did see a few questions about US weeks and what do you do on US weeks? What does US week actually look like? I'm happy to talk about it from a staff perspective, but I know Krissah has both participated in an in-person US week, and Krissah very kindly helped us with our virtual US weeks earlier this summer as well. So Krissah, I was wondering if you could share your experiences.
Yeah, for sure. The in-person US weeks were definitely a great experience. That's kind of where I like made my decision. That I was like very certain and set on going to the US for university. Because I remember like standing on top of the Rockefeller building and seeing the New York skyline, and I was like, I really like it here. Obviously I didn't end up studying in New York, but just that experience of getting like the ability to go there when I otherwise wouldn't have been able to was really cool. In terms of the virtual US weeks, that was also really cool. We had like I was a TL, so I made like playlists with my team. We had loads of different visits, like virtual visits and campus tours to different universities. We spoke with admissions officers, and there was like a chance to like answer questions and ask questions. So again, it was just really informative, regardless of whether it's in person or virtual.
Thank you. And what Krissah was referring to as being a TL, we have alumni of our program work with us as team leaders. So you will be in groups with your fellow cohort members, and you will be interacting with lots of alumni on the program as well. For virtual US weeks this year, we had 4. I'm going to embarrass myself if my mind totally went blank about their names. We had a virtual Midwest week where we visited a bunch of universities around the Midwest. We had a virtual New England week, a virtual Atlantic week, which was sort of around the Mid-Atlantic Pennsylvania region. And we had a virtual American South week as well. So each of those weeks sort of visited universities within those regions and met with lots and lots of admissions officers. I'm sure Krissah can attest to how exhausting it can be, but in a fun way on both the in-person and virtual US week. So I think we replicated that, that experience. It's definitely an action-packed week, but there's a lot of information and it will really help you make that decision about whether or not you actually want to continue to apply to US universities. Let's see some more questions here. There's so many. Thank you very much for all of your questions. It's just a lot to look through very quickly. And Nancy, we did have a few questions about students who might be slightly above the household income of £45,000 a year and whether or not they should consider submitting an application.
Absolutely, really good question. And what we say is obviously we're a social mobility programme, so we're looking to work with students from household incomes below this. However, if you do meet all the other eligibility points and some of the other additional criteria that we listed earlier, and you're really passionate about the programme, then we'd still encourage you to apply, and we'd be really interested in reading your application. But the important thing to consider is, as I said, because of the nature of our programme as a social mobility programme, we're looking for students who do come from these lower income households. If you do, if you cover the other points of criteria, then we'd still encourage you to apply.
Great, thank you so much. Let's see. Okay. Oh, I can see a very popular question at the top, which I missed at the beginning, so sorry about that. Is acquiring a visa difficult if you are a British citizen? So in terms of a program, if we are to visit the US in person, many of our students do not need a tourist visa to go visit for US weeks. In the off chance that you do, we will provide full support in helping you get that tourist visa. And then, of course, if you do go on to apply to and, like Krissah, ultimately enroll in a US university, we will also provide you guidance and support on how to apply for a student visa. Krissah, I don't know if you have any thoughts about the visa process briefly.
Yeah, it's not that difficult as long as you just like follow the deadlines and fill in all of the paperwork. There's an in-person interview for when you're applying for your actual visa if you do enroll in the US university, but that's really just about them asking you questions about your university and why you're choosing to go to the US. So there's nothing to be scared of.
Great, thank you so much. Yeah, and just like the video interview that you have to do for our application, nothing to be scared of. I saw one of the popular questions was, how can I prepare for the video interview? Krissah, I know this may have been some years ago for you. I'm not sure if you remember making the video interview, but do you have any advice on how an applicant might prepare for that?
It's still the pre-recorded interviews? Am I correct?
Yes, still the pre-recorded interviews, that's right.
Okay, yeah. Just think about what you want the staff to know about you and how you can weave that into your answers. And then also prepare your answers, like just bullet point some things that you want to mention so that you're not like stumbling in front of the camera a lot. Yeah, just be yourself. That's the main thing. Like the interview is just an opportunity for the staff to get to know you and put like a face to a name rather than it just being another application. So be yourself. That's my.
Yes, definitely be yourself. I know it's super awkward to talk to a camera at yourself, and that's kind of what we're doing on this webinar here. We can't see your faces, so we know it can be a little bit awkward to feel like you're just talking to yourself. But we genuinely don't care about the quality or if it's pixelated or if it's filmed on your phone on a pile of books and you're sitting on your bed. We just genuinely want to get a better sense of who you are as a person. So I saw Nancy had seen a few questions about whether or not specific subjects are better in the UK or the US. Nancy, would you like to touch on that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's another really good question. And something that we say is if you absolutely have your heart set on medicine or dentistry, then it's likely that you would be better studying these in the UK. Obviously, one of the really appealing aspects of studying in the US is being able to study such a broad range of subjects. So that's something that we really encourage our students to go and do, especially if you're interested in that. If you're absolutely set on which subject you'd like to study, subjects like medicine and dentistry are better studied in the UK because they're studied at postgraduate level in the US. And so this means that you it's not many international students that are accepted into studying these subjects. And the other thing that I'd like to say, sorry, it can also be difficult to get a job in the UK afterwards if you have gone on to study these subjects in the US, and it can be really difficult to get funding in the US to study these at postgraduate level. So first you'd go through your undergraduate level and then you'd have to apply again, and there's no guarantee that you would be accepted. So if these are subjects that you're definitely set on studying, we do encourage you to study in the UK. But if you'd like to be slightly more open-minded about your subject choices, there is an amazing array of subjects to be studied in the US, and many subjects that are not offered in the UK, with really interesting course names and the option to do dual majors. And so this is one of the reasons why I'd really encourage you to consider US study.
Great, thank you so much, Nancy. I saw another question from Rosie, was asking about what types of colleges do students apply to through the Sutton Trust US program. So Angel, I was wondering if you'd be comfortable talking about just generally the types of colleges that our students might apply to.
Absolutely, thanks, Madison. It's a great question. So first of all, the unis that students apply to, they have to offer funding for international students. That's the first and most important thing, because as our programme is catered towards low and middle income students, that means that you will need probably some form of financial aid. So it's really important that all the universities that we sort of like talk to you about and guide you on have that significant financial aid funding so that you can get the financial aid that you would need to be able to study there. There are so many different types of universities in the US, it's insane. When you think kind of conventionally about the UK, you think of, you know, going to university and thinking about one subject that you want to study. The US is a completely different kettle of fish. So we've got smaller universities such as liberal arts colleges in the US, which you know, offer a variety of different things from extracurriculars, a chance to study subjects across a whole range of different disciplines. So you're not kind of focused on one particular thing, and then later on you can declare your major. We've also got private research institutions that you can apply to, which might be slightly bigger, offer a range of funding opportunities for research or internships, whatever it might be. We've got also different colleges that are more specialised, so things like historically women's colleges. So for example, if you're a female identifying student that wants to study at a college with all other female students, there's so many different options for that. And what's great about those kind of colleges is that they also often have links with nearby neighbouring colleges. So even if you're in a cohort with all female identifying students, that doesn't mean necessarily that you wouldn't be able to take classes in a college nearby. So an example that I can think of is Bryn Mawr's relationship with Haverford, where Bryn Mawr is a historically women's college, but Haverford nearby is liberal arts college that has a mixed community, which, you know, students there can then take full advantage of the resources available. And also we've also got historically black colleges, which allow students to study and explore different opportunities there. So Spelman is one of our big ones at the moment that we really love to have a great strong relationship with. So there's basically so many different options for US study. But the main thing that we obviously have to emphasize even is the financial aid aspect. It's really, really important that they offer funding to international students, because that is what will enable you to apply.
Great, thanks so much, Angel. So we have time for probably 1 or 2 more questions. Huge apologies in advance to everyone whose questions we are not going to be able to answer. Thank you all for submitting so many questions, and we hope that this has proven really helpful to you. So let's go ahead and take just a few more questions. Let's just focus these ones on perhaps a few more aspects of the application process, since we very much hope that after this presentation, all of you will go out and begin your applications. Let's see. Okay, so we have a few students asking, can I apply for the program if I am studying a BTech? Nancy, you might want to take that one.
Sorry, I think I'm lagging ever so slightly.
No worries, no worries. It happens working from home. I'll just go ahead and respond to that question. So we did get a few students asking, can I apply if I am doing a BTech? While we do encourage students who are taking all sorts of sixth form curriculums to apply, US universities are going to be looking for the most rigorous option available at your college, at your sixth form. And typically to a US university, that means A-levels. So the majority of our applicants, as well as the majority of the students on our program, are undertaking either A-levels, National Fives, or the IB program, oftentimes perhaps taking a BTech alongside of that. So I hope that helps answer your question. Let's see.
Can I just really quickly touch on something, Madison, that I see
ahead,
in
sure.
the Q&A box? So I know that quite a few students have put down that, you know, is the video interview live? Is it pre-recorded? How does it work? So just to kind of reassure you on that, I know that Krissah alluded to it earlier by saying it's pre-recorded, but basically there's no set amount of times that you can re-record and you record as much as you want, basically, because you're in control. And when you get through the application form, we've got detailed instructions of the kind of questions you'll be answering, how you'd upload and, you know, upload the video to YouTube and all that kind of thing. So I would just really encourage you not to worry about the video interview, because it's not like you're going to have a one-take interview and that's it, game over. It's not like that at all. It's completely within your control. So if you want to film the video once, by all means do that. If you want the video it several times, it's completely within your control, and it's something that then you have the opportunity to then upload to YouTube and we can then watch, so that we won't be seeing anything that you don't want us to see. It'll be the finished product of whatever you want to present.
Great, thank you so much. And I'll just go ahead and take one more question that I've seen a lot of questions about extracurriculars and activities. So students are asking, you know, what types of extracurriculars should I be putting on my Sutton Trust US program application? How many do I need? I'll just open that up as our final question to any of you who would like to discuss how extracurriculars factor into our application process.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to cover this one, and I'd also be interested to pass it over to Krissah afterwards to speak to you about if you remember any of the extracurriculars that you wrote about in your application. So there could be so many different options for extracurriculars. It's hard to even know where to begin, because we also would like you to tell us if one of your responsibilities in your spare time is looking after siblings, or do you have a part-time job? So it's not just limited to your hobbies and the things you enjoy doing, although obviously this is a really interesting thing for us to learn about, especially as we're getting to know more about you as a student. So what kinds of books do you like reading outside of school? Have you taken any free online courses? Is there something you're interested in to do with music, or of course sports, or perhaps horse riding? But don't let it limit you if it's not something that would be considered as a standard hobby. as it will, because often the students we work with have additional responsibilities and things they have to do that do make up quite a considerable amount of their free time. So if this is something that sounds like it could be relating to you, tell us about that. You know, don't just be limited by the things you have time for. We want to know about your passions, but what do you spend your spare time doing? And I will pass it over to Krissah just to hear about some of the things that she maybe covered in her application.
Yeah, so touched on like a lot of things, but in my application I mentioned some of the things I'm doing in school and some of the things I did outside of school. So things like being head girl on like the school council. I had a blog outside of school that I used to just like write music reviews about and just write about things that I was passionate about. So that was kind of like an insight into my personality that wasn't directly linked to school. Things like starting a mentoring program for a subject I'm interested in, or things like editing my school magazine or founding a school magazine. Really, it's just anything that you feel like kind of is a testament to your personality and things that you want the staff to know about you. And anything you've been doing like long term, short term, throw it into the application because it will give us a more like holistic.
Definitely. And I think that is a great note. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Angel.
No, I was actually just gonna, I think those points are amazing. And I was only just gonna really quickly flag that obviously we're all aware that it's been a really unprecedented year and you all might be, well, we're all facing the effects of lockdown and the COVID-19 pandemic. So I would just really encourage you that if you haven't, if some of your extracurriculars have stalled or whatever it might be because of the impact of the pandemic, please don't be afraid to still submit an application because we have a section in the application for telling us about what the impact of COVID has been. So don't let that deter you because we know that it's not a normal year and we know that it's not a normal situation. Yeah, that's all I want to add.
Yes, thank you so much. And I think those are two really good points to wrap up our presentation this evening. So first, genuinely be yourself on the application. We're not looking for a specific type of person. We're not looking for a specific set of interests or a specific set of extracurriculars. We're looking for a very well-rounded cohort with a lot of different interests in a lot of different areas. So just be yourself and submit an application that feels true to who you are as a person. And as Angel said, please utilize that further information and extenuating circumstances section if that is going to be applicable to you, whether that's how COVID-19 has impacted your household or academics or anything else that you would like us to know about your health or about your family. That is going to be a very helpful section for you to fill out. So we'll go ahead and leave it there this evening. We are really glad that so many of you could make it out to join us live. We will send each of you a link to the recording next week if you would like to view after the fact. And in the meantime, definitely check out our website, us.suttontrust.com, because that is going to have perhaps some answers to your questions. And it also has a contact us form if you have a question that we were not able to get to today and that is not addressed on the website. And we'd also like to give a final thank you to Krissah for taking out an hour of her evening to spend some time with us and answer your questions. Great, thank you so much, everyone, and have a nice evening. Bye.